He put mud on my eyes, and I washed, and I see. Dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, welcome to Whispers of Grace. The readings of the day speaks about seeing with God's eyes and living in the light of Christ. They reminds us that God does not look at us the way the world does, and that Jesus came into the world to open our eyes and lead us from the darkness to light. In the first reading, the prophet Samuel goes to the house of Jesse to choose a king for Israel. When Samuel sees the strong and impressive son of Jesse, he thinks that one of them must surely be God's chosen king. But God tells him something very important. Man looks on outward appearances, but the Lord looks inward appearances in our heart. Finally, the youngest son, David, who was only a shepherd boy, is chosen. The reading teaches us an important lesson for us and for our lives. In our daily life, we often judge people quickly. We judge them by their appearances, by their education, by their wealth, by their social status, and by their background. But God invites us to look deeper and deeper. Every person has a dignity because every person created by God. Therefore, as followers of Christ, we must learn to respect others and not to judge them only by what we see outside. In the second reading, reminds us of the transformation that happens in a person who follows Christ. St. Paul says, once you were in darkness, but now you are in light of the world. Before knowing Christ, human life is often guided by selfishness, sin, and ignorance of God. But through the faith and the baptism, Christians receive a new identity so that they become children of light. This means that our lives should reflect the presence of Christ through goodness, righteousness, and truth. St. Paul encourages believers of Christ to live according to this new identity. A Christian cannot continue living in the darkness of sin, but must walk in the light of Christ. When we choose honesty instead of deceit, forgiveness instead of hatred, and love instead of selfishness, the light of Christ shines through our lives. In this way, our daily actions become a witness to others and help bring God's light into the world. In the Gospel, we hear the story of Jesus healing the man who was blind from birth. At first, the disciples think the blindness must be a punishment for sin, but Jesus teaches us them that this is a situation will reveal the work of God. Jesus heals the man and gives him sight. This miracle is not only about a physical healing, it is also about a spiritual awakening. The blind man gradually begins to understand who Jesus is. At the same time, the religious leaders who think they can clearly actually remain spiritually blind because they refuse to believe Christ. This gospel invites us to reflect on our lives. Sometimes we may also be spiritual blind. We may fail to see God's blessings in our lives. We may fail to notice the suffering of others around us. We may fail to recognize God working in unexpected ways. Jesus wants to open our eyes so that we can see more clearly, so that He wants us to see goodness in others, the needs of the poor, and the need and the presence of God in our daily lives. Dear friends, Let us examine and see in our lives how far we are reaching the light of Christ. What spiritual blindness in my life is preventing me from seeing God clearly? How can I live more as a child of light in my family, workplaces, and in our own community? So, dear friends, during this Lenten season, the Lord invites us to follow Him to heal our spiritual blindness. Through our prayer, fasting, and act of charity, we allow His light to enter into our hearts. When Christ's light fills our lives, we begin to live differently. We become more patient, more forgiving, more compassionate, and more attentive to God's will. Live Jesus.